Hey guys, it's Jen and I am here with my September wrap-up. In the month of September, I actually had a really good reading month. I ended up reading 11 books total, which is more than what I thought I was going to get done because I thought I was having like a reading slump. Um, so yeah, I'm just going to go over what I read and let you know what I thought of them. So the first book that I read in the month of September was um, The Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. It is one of those beloved classics that everyone seems to have read and everyone loves. However, I think I maybe grew out of um, that style of writing. I feel like I might be a little older. Like, I'm obviously older than the intended audience, but I feel like had I read it sooner, I would have liked it a lot more. It follows a young wizard named Ged as he, with his story and how he became the greatest sorcerer um, in the Earthsea. Normally, I'm really a fan of these types of books, but for some reason, I think maybe this one just got overhyped for me or something. I don't know, because I'd heard so many great things and it just kind of fell flat for me. So it was a little disappointing. I still enjoyed it because I gave it a 3. That means I did like the book. It just means I didn't love it. I'm probably not going to be continuing on with the series just because I have so many other series that I love that I would rather read than hope that the next book might be better for me. I don't know. I do know that sometimes series do get better over time. I mean, I'm really far behind on the reading that I want to do right now as it is. So I might just, put it on hold for now and we will see. You never know, I might change my mind in the future. Maybe I'll read it with my kids. Maybe one of them will like it and we will read it at night. It's really hard to say because my reading tastes change all the time. The second book that I read in the month of September was a bit of a disappointment as well. It was Smoke in the Sun by Renee Adia. I loved Flame in the Mist. I loved that book. This one, however, I found that it had a lot, like nothing really happened for the first 2/3 to 3/4 of the book. Like nothing was really going on. It was kind of dull and boring, and then like that last little bit was really good, but I mean it just didn't make up for the first half, the first part of the book. But yeah, like this is the second and final book. It is a duology, so I'm not going to be continuing on, obviously, because there isn't any more. I will still continue to pick up Renee Adia's books if they look interesting to me, because I did really enjoy her other series, and I really enjoyed the first book in this series. It's just this one I thought was kind of boring for most of the book. That's not to say that other people wouldn't really enjoy it. It's just I personally I was expecting a lot more than what I got from it. So it was just, I kind of just wished it was something else that it wasn't. Everything ended up how I thought it was going to end up, and like there was no surprises, and yeah, it just, it was an average book. It was good, but it definitely suffers from like second book syndrome, even though it's only a duology, which is not good. The third book that I read in the month of September was also the first book that I read for the Tome Infinity and Beyond readathon. This readathon went on for 2 weeks. I ended up reading 4 books and made it to my final planet. It was hard because it overlapped with Contemporary-thon, which I also did, which you've seen a wrap up for. But the first book that I read for this was Fuzzy Nation by John Scalzi, which I ended up giving a 5 because I absolutely loved it. And then when I was like looking at it, I noticed that like this is a book that he rewrote of somebody else's, so I might go check out theirs. Apparently, like it didn't date well because the original book was written like in the 60s or something like that. So apparently, it didn't date well, so he just updated it and then got permission from the family of the other writer to write this one, but basically it follows Jack Holloway. He's an independent contractor on like another planet where they're trying to find like these like precious minerals and stuff like that. Basically, if there is any life that is considered sentient on these planets, they're not allowed to do any prospecting. So he finds like this huge mine, but then at the same time, he also finds these little beings that he calls the fuzzies that are like little cat people and sound adorable, and I would love to have one to talk to. But yeah, he finds them, and he doesn't want. It ends up being like this big political thing about, are they sentient beings or are they not, because they can't talk. So it was very much enjoyable, and I just loved listening to this one because I listened to it on audiobook. I just thought it was amazing, and would highly recommend it. It was my first book from John Scalzi because I took off from here, I took off from Earth on ship D, which is to read a new to you author, and then you go to the asteroid belt, which is to. So the next book that I read was Nine Fox Gambit, obviously, by Yoon Ha Lee. And I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5. I think for me, like, I do like science fiction, but I think this one was even more like sciencey than I was able to do, because like I understood a lot of it and like that was fine, but there was just a bunch of like I don't know, it wasn't quite my thing, and it's probably because this book was really hyped up for me, so because it was hyped up I was expecting something else and I didn't get what I was expecting. I ended up getting like something that had like a lot of explanations going on, and like it's just, it just wasn't quite for me. So again, I won't be continuing on with that series because there are tons of other series out there that I can read in the meantime. So next up, I was going to Mars, which is to read a book with aliens in it. So I read The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 as well because it just wasn't as exciting as the first book. I'm trying to figure out right now if I want to continue on with the series or not. I'm not sure. I might, just so I can have that ending, because it is only a trilogy. There's one more, and I've heard that it's really good, but I'm unsure of it right now. I don't know. I would have to buy it, so yeah, I don't know if I'm going to read it. I don't really want to go into a whole lot of details, but this is the second book in the series. The first book was The Fifth Wave, which is about an alien invasion that hits in waves. So the fifth wave is like the fifth wave is the wave that one ended up at, and then like this is just like continues on pretty much right from where the fifth wave left off, with Cassie and them running for their lives basically and trying to hide from the aliens that are just little organisms inside people's heads. So they're basically like parasites. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to continue on with the series or not right now. I might change my mind, I might not. We'll see. And then the final book that I read for the Tome Infinity and Beyond readathon was The Book of M by Peng Shepherd. I ended up giving this a 3.5. I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was a little dry in some places. Like, it took a while to get into it, but once I did get into it, I like just finished it like that. But yeah, this one was for me to go from Mars to Neptune, and that was to read a book that had sci-fi and fantasy elements, which this one does, because it's a dystopian. But like in this book, people lose their shadows, and when they lose their shadows, they also lose their memories. But in like at the same time, they also gain like powers. It's really hard to explain how these powers work, but like because they're losing their memories, they don't know how everything works, I guess. So like for an example, this happens at the beginning of the book, so it's not really a spoiler. For example, the guy sees a deer, but instead of antlers, the deer has like feathers on its head, like wings on its head for antlers, because someone has forgotten that deers don't have feathers on their head and that they have antlers. Um, so it happens for real. So, like, yeah, like if they forget that something is in our world, it could change how that thing is. I believe there is some crazy stuff that went on in New York in this, and I thought it was hilarious. It's funny, but it's not funny because a lot of people died in this book. But I enjoyed it for what it was. Like I said, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's really interesting, and if it wasn't like, I feel like if you're okay with a slower book, you would really love this one. I was really trying to debate if I wanted to give it a 4 or not, but the ending was kind of, there was something that happened in the ending which I wasn't a fan of, but it totally makes sense and I understand why it happened. But yeah, it was an enjoyable book. Um, so I will be looking out for more from Peng Shepherd in the future. So after the Tome Infinity and Beyond, I went on to do Contemporary-a-thon. I know I used my bullet journal for this. Before Contemporary-a-thon, I ended up reading a total of 4 books, which completed 6 of the 7 challenges. I'm not really going to go into a whole lot of detail because I did do a vlog for Contemporary-a-thon, so if you want to see like my thoughts as I was reading, you can check that out. But yeah, the first book that I read was Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. It was a great look at mental health and like just life in general and how things don't always go how you hope they will, and just showed a character growing, like the main character grew so much, and in the end, like he was able to come to terms with some things that he wasn't able to wrap his mind around before, like that he had basically blocked out these memories because it was so traumatic for him, but then he's able to remember those and move on with his life basically. So I really enjoyed it and definitely recommend it if you're looking for something that has to do with mental health. The next book that I read was one that was not on my TBR that I just picked up anyways, and that was A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I ended up giving this a 5-star rating because I absolutely loved this book. It was sad, it made me cry. It was basically like, it's about this old man whose wife has died, and he's just a very grumpy old man, and like his neighbors, he gets these new neighbors, and then people just won't leave him alone, and he just wants to die in peace. So he's very depressed because he wants to kill himself. Um, so it was just such an amazing book. I cried and just loved it. Like I could not stop listening to it. But yeah, I will definitely be checking out Frederick Bachman's other books sooner than later because this one was just so good and so emotional, and it was a good look at depression and just like communities in general coming together and just someone's entire life, like shows basically his whole life and how he's come to be who he is, and it was just so good, and I ended up loving Ovid, and I wish like, oh, I just loved it, and it was just good, and I definitely recommend that book. Next up, I read Someone Like You by Sarah Dessen. This one is about a young girl whose best friend becomes pregnant after she loses after she gives her virginity to her boyfriend, who then dies the next day. So it was actually very good. Like, I didn't know what to expect because this is one of Sarah Dessen's older books, and I never know what to expect from that. But I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. It just showed how they moved on, like how she was there for her friend when normally her friend was the strong one in their relationship. But this time she had to be the strong one, and it was just a great book about friendship. Like, I feel like this is a really good one to read for young girls to read, because it does have to do with like the main character in this is like still a virgin, and it just shows like the peer pressure that she's kind of going through for like from her boyfriend that she gets, and just kind of that kind of thing. But yeah, I ended up really enjoying this, and I'm glad that I picked this one up, and it's in my Sarah Dessen collection. I don't know. I just feel like it like has a very good way to show how how life is when you're a teenager, like, and things that are considered big, and just growing up. Like, there's a lot of growing up that goes on in this book. Now, it is one of the older books, so it's not like they don't have cell phones and stuff, so I mean, it's kind of dated in that way, but it was still really good, and like I was able to relate to it because when I grew up, I didn't have a cell phone. And I'm that old. The next and final book that I ended up reading for Contemporary-thon is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5, which is kind of sad. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy the end. I was hoping this would end a different way, and now I don't know what I want for the end. I don't know how I want the last book to end. So this one is, if you don't know what it's about a girl who, this is the second book in the series, but the first book is about a girl who writes a letter for a boy every time she has intense feelings for him, and then she just puts it away. Puts it in an envelope and puts it in her hat box, and then just puts it away. Somehow the letters get sent out, and things just go from there. But basically, it's about her past crushes, coming back and like just reevaluating things, and like her friendships and feelings for certain people. But I did enjoy it, and I will be reading the last book when I can, but I'm not like gonna rush to read it. But it is like a series that I do enjoy, and I really like Jenny Han's writing. So I mean, I know that the last one could be amazing, and just because I didn't care for the ending of this one doesn't mean I won't enjoy how the series ends. But I mean, I have to get there, obviously. We'll see. The next book that I read was the one that I read for my book club. I actually finished it, and that was The Dry by Jane Harper. This one is a thriller. I read it on ebook. It's about a police officer whose friend from his childhood commits suicide after murdering his wife and son. And yeah, basically it's his friend's parents don't think that their son would have done this. So basically he's looking into it, and it's just a mystery thriller, and there's a twist in there. and it was just really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5, which was surprising for me because like normally our book club reads YA books, but we had a new member that month to last month to pick the new book, and that's what she picked because I don't think she realizes that we're a YA book club. We only pick YA just because like it's easier to read a YA book during the month, and not everyone is like a fast reader, so it's just easier on people. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and we'll look for more from Jane Harper. I thought it was just a really well done thriller. I was not expecting the twist, and then once it happened, I was just like, oh wow, that's not what I was expecting at all. And at the same time, it's also like telling the story of his other childhood friend who was found in a river, and he was blamed for her death because he was he was blamed for her death, um, and he left town because of that. Because this is a really small town in Australia, and like the people just ran him and his father out of town, and this was like his first time coming back was because of his friend dying. So, and to help out his parents. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and funnily enough, the person who picked the book didn't enjoy it because she thought it was really slow moving. I thought it had a good pacing, and like it was a little slow to start, but then once it got going, it was just like, let's keep reading. And the final book that I read in the month of September was The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I listened to this one on audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I loved like the setting because it's like set in like a fantastical Russian world. Like it was just really well done, and for some reason I just really like books that are set in like Russia with like fantasy elements. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I like it. But yeah, it just follows a young girl, Vasilisa, um, while she grows up. She can like see all the household spirits, um, that they leave like little offerings to, but like a new priest comes to their area, and it's just he is obviously preaching about God, and like he basically converts the whole village, and they stop giving these offerings to their little household spirits, and they start to fade, and their power fades, and it's just then evil spirits start to like inc- gain more power because they don't have like these household spirits protecting them anymore because they're weak and dying. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I'll be continuing on with that series because I just need to. It was just so good. So I'm definitely recommending that one. I can definitely see where the hype is coming from for that series, and I can't wait to read the next one. So these are just some of the books that I read in the month of September. Let me know down below what you read, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!